Welcome to a special investigative explainer from the Human Error News Network. We're taking 49 global investigations and rolling them up into one master narrative.
I need you to think about your workplace right now. Is your absolute best, most experienced, most compliant employee actually your biggest safety threat? I know that sounds completely backward. But what if the very rules you've built to protect your organization are the exact things setting your top performers up to fail?
Take a look at this staggering number, $5.2 billion. That is the estimated cost of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. Now, human nature makes us want to look for a culprit in the moment of chaos, right? But the error that caused this actually happened years prior, completely hidden by procedural blind spots. So why didn't anyone see it coming?
Let's get into Section 1, the human error illusion. If you manage risk or operations, you definitely know the drill. Millions poured into compliance training, perfect standard operating procedures, and yet, those familiar incident reports just keep landing on your desk. It's incredibly frustrating. But for half a century, we've been chasing the wrong ghost here. We treat human error as a personal character flaw when it's actually a biological limit. Expecting perfect, infinite performance from finite biological resources basically guarantees that the human system will break under strain.
Moving on to Part 2, Anatomy of System Failure.
Let's deconstruct exactly how this breakdown happens in the real world. Take the chaotic LaGuardia air traffic control near miss. This timeline visually compresses the sheer terror of what happened. 30 seconds prior, the controller is already distracted by an entirely different plane reporting a potential emergency. 15 seconds prior, a fire truck asks to cross the runway. The controller approves it, and his attention is split. The entire window from that permission to the moment of impact was less than 20 seconds. But here is the real issue. At that time, there was a nationwide shortage of 3,000 air traffic controllers. That systemic stress forced roles to be combined, making human reaction time entirely irrelevant. The system was quite literally designed to fail.
Now jump with me from physical engineering over to human biology. Put yourself in the shoes of a junior doctor walking onto a typical medical ward. Before they even sit down at a computer, their senses are completely saturated by pagers, messaging apps, and overlapping verbal orders. Then, the electronic health record throws a dozen poorly designed pop-up alerts onto the screen. Just notice the systemic alert override rate here. It frequently exceeds 90%. When a system blasts the doctor with frequent unhelpful alarms, overriding them without reading isn't negligence. It's a guaranteed, hardwired biological survival mechanism just to bypass cognitive overload.
And you know, this brilliantly illustrates the Swiss cheese model of accident causation. Think of every safety measure you have as a slice of cheese. Each slice has holes in it, latent conditions sitting dormant, systemic defenses stripped away by understaffing or active failures. Recently, an in-house AI agent at Meta triggered a critical security emergency. The AI hallucinated and acted alone, and the overworked human simply trusted it, no questions asked. When those holes perfectly align across multiple slices, disaster slips right through your defenses.
Which brings us to Section 3, Blame versus True Learning.
When those holes align and the system fails, your organization arrives at a fork in the road. And here is the absolute core rule of this entire network. You can either blame a human or learn from a failure, but you absolutely cannot do both. The second you decide to point a finger and blame an individual, you slam the door shut on any chance of actually learning. Blaming generates fear and hides the deeper system flaws. Learning? Well, learning is harder. It diagnoses the root causes, builds trust, and actively prevents repetition. If your investigation ends at human error, your train of thought stopped way too early.
Part 4, Detect, Prevent, and Correct. So, how do we actually fix the machine? We need a structured framework that transitions your organization from reacting to chaos into actively engineering resilience. Step 1 is detecting those hidden risks. Step 2 is preventing errors through human-centered design. And Step 3 is correcting the underlying conditions by fostering a blame-free culture where people aren't terrified to report near misses.
Let's start with detection. You have to uncover invisible risks before human error even enters the equation. For example, during a critical infrastructure investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board recommended something surprisingly simple: an infrared camera. See, a dangerously loose wire connection gives off heat. A thermal camera sees it glowing like a beacon, turning a totally invisible, silent time bomb into a glaring, easily fixable alert. We have to use technology to detect what the human eye cannot.
Prevention can also be incredibly simple. We tracked a massive global pharmaceutical company that stopped blaming operators and started redesigning their dense, text-heavy standard operating procedures for the human brain. By utilizing just 30% white space, short sentences, and ergonomic visual blocks, notice the massive 90% reduction in deviations related to batch record documentation. 90% of those errors literally vanished off the radar just by making the paper easier for a stressed human being to read.
Prevention also means designing systems where making the wrong choice is physically harder than making the right one. Take the tech world. 62% of container security mistakes are blamed on human error, but developers are overworked and default to bloated, unsecure software distributions just to save time. The fix? Pre-hardened base images. By providing secure software environments by default, you minimize the attack surface and shift the security responsibility away from the stressed employee. You ensure that the secure choice is always the absolute easiest choice.
And finally, Section 5, Your System Survival Blueprint.
It is time to put the power directly in your hands. I want you to take this actionable blueprint and audit your own workflows tomorrow morning. First, ruthlessly audit your procedures for cognitive overload. If a document looks like a legal contract, your team is going to make mistakes. Second, eradicate the boy who cried wolf effect. If an alert doesn't require immediate critical action, permanently delete it from the system. Third, rebuild your schedules and workflows around actual, finite human biology, not machine expectations. And finally, as we deploy increasingly autonomous tech, implement strict, empowered human-in-the-loop review systems.
But as we build these incredible tools and AI systems to catch our mistakes, a terrifying new frontier is opening up. We know how to guard against what an AI gets factually wrong. But what happens when the AI is technically correct, but its output is subtly shaped by hidden biases from its training data? What happens when the safety net itself is biased, and we are just blindly trusting it on autopilot?
You've seen the evidence. You know that human error is just a symptom of a sick system. So I have to ask you, if your safety protocols are just paper shields hiding structural exhaustion, what hidden variable is waiting to ignite your system right now?